Hello there, welcome back to my world of stuff. My name is Paul Mount. First of all, very happy Doctor Who Day to you all. Doctor Who's 60th anniversary. It's November the 23rd, 2023. 60 years since Doctor Who burst on our television screens and changed everything. This is the first of two videos I'll be posting up today. The other one is a more personal recollection of Doctor Who in terms of what Doctor Who means to me, and I certainly tried, and I hope I've managed to capture something about the series and why it's been important to me, and I hope that there's things there that might connect with you as to why you're a fan of this mad old show after all these years. But this particular video is the final one in my series Doctor Who Revisited, where over the last few weeks I've been looking at a classic Doctor Who serial in the run-up to the 60th and just giving it a good old talk. And on the day of the birthday celebration itself, what better way to end the series than with the 7th classic series Doctor, Sylvester McCoy. Right, Sylvester McCoy's Doctor. Some of you may know I'm not a massive fan of Sylvester McCoy, or I wasn't a massive fan of Sylvester McCoy, the Sylvester McCoy era at the time it was on, mainly having been watching this series for over 20 years. I wasn't blind to the fact that over the previous few years, the quality of the material had dropped, popularity of the show had dropped, and more importantly, the support it was receiving from the BBC had dropped. It was no longer a golden boy at the BBC, despite having celebrated its 20th anniversary quite spectacularly in 1983 with a special 90-minute episode, a massive Longleat celebration, which was massively oversubscribed. But a year and a half later, the BBC turned on the show and the wheels began to fall off. The Remembrance of the Daleks is, for me, one of the last great Doctor Who stories, really. And I think it is a great story. I didn't always think that, but looking at it now with the benefit of many years of hindsight, you can see it's actually... it is a very good story, very well made, very ambitious, and does some interesting things with the history of Doctor Who, which today might outrage fans who fly into an outrage at the most innocuous of things, but not Davros. That's not innocuous. In selecting a Sylvester McCoy episode, I was conscious of the fact that the last couple of Doctors I'd given fairly short shrift to, with stories which I didn't think were much cop, and I thought I'd spin things round on its head a little bit by finishing the series with a good episode, a very good episode from a Doctor who doesn't rate very highly on my list. And I must point out, it's not Sylvester McCoy I particularly got the issue with, because I've spoken to him a few times. He's a lovely bloke. I just think that era, as I know now, was struggling for attention and struggling for love, struggling for an audience. And I know that behind the scenes, the script editor and Andrew Cartmel was working to try and rehabilitate the series, but the BBC just weren't interested. And I think, again, benefit of hindsight, what Doctor Who needed, there was a big charismatic actor to pull the series up by the scruff of its neck. Sylvester McCoy, bless him, wasn't that. Anyway, I'm wandering off into other areas now. Remembrance of the Daleks was the first serial of season 25 of classic Doctor Who, perilously near the end of its run. And I remember tuning into it very trepidatiously, having not really thought much of Sylvester McCoy's first series and thinking, what else is in store? And I can remember quite clearly watching that first episode. I think it was on a Monday night or a Tuesday night, watching that pre-credit sequence of the Dalek spaceship approaching the Earth, a Star Wars type shot, with the overlay of the voice of Martin Luther King. And I think I seem to remember a little thrill of excitement, because I thought, this is a bit different. You didn't have pre-title sequences of Doctor Who all that often. And it was a statement of intent, I think, that this was going to be a much gutsier story than we'd had before. I think the production team was starting to find their feet a little bit in the stories they wanted to tell and how they wanted to tell them. And although they were still miles away from the quality of the classic years of Pertwee and Baker, this was a marked improvement from what we'd had over the past 5 years, say. It's a very nostalgic story because it's the 25th anniversary, which was celebrated with a lot less hullabaloo than the more recent celebrations we've had. Return of the Daleks, set in 1963, around Coal Hill School, where it all started. Daleks are there, they're looking for something. The Doctor and Ace arrive. The Doctor, in the manner of the secretive nature of the Seventh Doctor, he's aware of what the Daleks are after because he's obviously been there before and he's left something behind. The something he's left behind is the Hand of Omega, a devastating stellar weapon which can destroy stars. If the Daleks get their hands on it, oops, big trouble for all of us. It's a very nice action-packed story. I remember watching the first episode and it really rattled along with the Dalek in the junkyard, which is supposed to be the junkyard from An Unearthly Child, although, oops, they spelled Foreman wrong on the gate. Really exciting scene with the Dalek emerging from the debris, blasting a soldier. One of the first times we saw that now familiar image, Dalek extermination effect of the sort of skeleton inside the body, which is quite nasty. It just rattled along, and there were some lovely little sequences in it, like the Doctor and Ace driving through London and sort of swapping seats as they go under a tunnel. The Doctor just seemed a more commanding figure, and it felt like a Pertwee story because you had Simon Williams as Group Captain Chunky Gilmore, who's in charge of this military operation to recover this creature. It had a unit feel to it, the Doctor acting as an advisor, and of course there are references to that sort of thing. You had the Daleks in Coal Hill School materialising in a transmat. You had a Dalek going upstairs at the end of the first episode, which was, that did happen before 2005, And then we had the arrival of the huge Dalek shuttlecraft. It was just big. For late 1980s Doctor Who, it felt like they were making an effort to do something. I mean, again, didn't compete with the cinema because it couldn't, but by Doctor Who standards, it was pretty damn good. This shuttlecraft lands, opens up, the Daleks pour out. You've got the special weapons Dalek blasting things. You've got the Imperial Daleks. It carries on sort of slightly themes from Revelation of the Daleks, if you like. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to say if you like. I say that too much. It carries on themes from Revelation of the Daleks, but it just feels like there's a new energy in it. It feels like there's an energy that wasn't there in the previous series, where the previous series energy was more towards being light-hearted and comedic and a bit silly, and a fun sci-fi spoof is a description I remember very clearly from a newspaper at the time, and I remember seeing this thinking, is that what Doctor Who's become? But this has a bit more oomph to it. It's better. It's directed by Andrew Morgan, who I think had done a series called Knights of God on ITV a couple of years before, which was a sort of a dystopian thing, which featured people like Patrick Troughton and Gareth Thomas in it. And it had that sort of pace about it. It felt a bit more modern than Doctor Who had felt for some time. Of course, you had the return of Davros. Not exactly in his wheelchair, life support system this time. He was in a big white dome type thing, which was a nod towards the old Dalek Emperor, I think, from the TV21 comic strips of the 1960s. And of course, it was revealed to be Davros. There's a lot to like in this story, and I really enjoyed watching it again because it's, unlike McCoy's first season, it doesn't make you cringe. I mean, things like Time and the Rani and Paradise Towers, you sort of cringe at the archness of them and the tongue-in-cheek campness of them, if you like. But this feels muscular and this feels important. And there's some really good performances. I mean, George Sewell, who was one of the great actors of the 70s and 80s, one of my favourites from UFO, another one of my favourite TV shows. The late Dursley McClendon, who passed away a few years later, gives a good performance as Mike, this sort of soldier who's not as he seems to be. Pamela Salem, who'd previously been in Robots of Death. Simon Williams, as I said, as Chunky Gilmore. There's just a lot going on, and it's well written. It has a nice sort of energy to it. It's got lots of Daleks, which is always a good thing. Daleks out on the streets of London or around Waterloo, I think. It's just a rattlingly good story, and I really enjoyed watching it again. It is I've often thought that Caves of Androzani was the last great Doctor Who story of the 80s. I think this probably is, to be honest. And I like Greatest Show in the Galaxy, which ends this series as well. But I think this has the edge because it's the Daleks back on form after a few slightly ropey outings. A powerful, dangerous. Sylvester McCoy has a bit more edge to him. Of course, you've got the classic scene of Ace and the baseball bat, which has been oft repeated and referenced. It's just a really good, solid, gripping story. And it is such a step up from the quality of the previous season that you can't help, or I can't help remembering a sigh of relief. I knew the Doctor was dying. I knew it wasn't long for this world. But you sort of felt, well, if it's going to end soon, at least it's going to end on a bit more of a high. Because now, after years of sort of floundering around, not quite sure where it fitted in anymore, now it seemed to have a purpose within itself. It had a new sense of direction and had a new sense of purpose. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. I enjoyed it then, I enjoyed it now. It's a cracking old Doctor Who yarn from the dying days. It's available, of course. It's on DVD, and of course it's on the iPlayer, BBC iPlayer, and ITVX, BritBox, so it's out there if you want to see it. Remembrance of the Daleks is a cracking yarn at the end of the day, which, surprises me. And I knew it was good, but rewatching it, it still holds up very well. So thumbs up to the Daleks. I'm going to give it a good old-fashioned 8 out of 10. 8 out of 10 for Remembrance of the Daleks. Right, thank you for watching. If you've watched this whole series of Doctor Who Revisited, hope you've enjoyed. I know the viewers have sort of dipped and risen, as they always do on my channel. But hope you've enjoyed this little run through. Of course, it was difficult to choose stories to watch because there's so much. And I did intend to watch more than one. But time got the better of me, as it so often does. But I think it was interesting to take a serial from each Doctor. Not necessarily representative ones. I don't think for one moment that the Mutants is representative of John Pertwee. But or The Awakening was representative of Peter Davison. But I wanted to highlight some of the less regarded serials and see what they look like in the modern day. So I hope you enjoyed this series. If you haven't watched the other videos, they're all back there further up the channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, bad person. Bad YouTube watchers. Why not like and subscribe? Like and subscribe immediately, henceforth, if not sooner. Leave a comment down below. Tell me what you think of Remembrance of the Daleks. Do you have a soft spot for it in your Who mind? I'm sorry, I'm just drifting now, talking nonsense. Let me know what you think of it. Like and subscribe, all that sort of stuff. Stay tuned. A little bit later on today will be the Doctor and Me, which I think is about a 20-minute meander through Doctor Who's history and my place in it. So that's coming up later today. But for now, enjoy the rest of Doctor Who Day. I'll see you soon. Until I do, keep taking the stuff.